Well, lol, it's Macro Monday. Anyway, so what's going on this week and last week? Let's start off with the events of last week. So I'll just share my screen and then we can get into it. Interesting morning when I'm thinking I'm doing a podcast and not Macro Monday. Okay, how do I share the screen? Here we go. That should be showing. Great. So last week was interesting, right? So we had CPI numbers come in a little bit cooler. We had expectations on jobs. It was a beat. And then we're still seeing quite a lot of pressure in the tech rotation, and you're seeing more money flow into quality and value. So you've seen a little bit of outperformance there. Energy outperforming so heavily as well would be contributing to that most likely. We've got some volatility in the metals, and there's some interesting data in the commitments of trader report, which I'll show later. And then the NZ dollar has actually got quite a lot stronger since last year. So that's actually quite a nice benefit for us. And by us, I mean people in New Zealand that are spending in US dollars. What's coming up this week? So we've got FOMC meeting minutes, we've got PCE inflation, advanced GDP number for Q4. That's quite interesting. Apparently, the Supreme Court tariff ruling, maybe it will be delayed again. Who knows if we'll actually get to a ruling on that. And then some more economic data that will be dropping. I think the interesting thing there is the GDP, I think, is an interesting one. PCE is because it's a true another way people look at inflation. And then that ruling, I think, is going to be a nice catalyst. So if you were to look at the performance of the S&P sectors over the last wee while, you would see, let's say, year to date. Um, Year to date, you've got basically the top performer being XLE, which is the energy ETF, and then you've got the biggest underperformer is XLF, which is the financials, but you've also got XLK down 3.28%. So that's quite common when you have not energy, sorry, technology being such a dominant theme, and then you have had financials come in and benefit from some of that activity and have had generally really strong results. And there's also an expectation of deregulation in the financials and a potential acquisition boom. So that explains how it's been previously so expensive on a relative basis, and now we're seeing a bit of a cooling off as the tech trade also comes under pressure. So it kind of makes a little bit of sense. I made this strategy just playing around with the platform at the start of the year, I think. When did I start it? Yeah, 3rd of December. And I just put all the S&P sectors into a list, and I made the strategy, and then I just kind of voted what I thought was good and poor. Um, and this long short factor model strategy has performed quite well, which is quite cool. It's always an interesting thing when you're basically market neutral, but you're using factors to represent your view. I think it's quite interesting. Anyway, moving on. So this week we've got a bunch of earnings. There's we're in the thick of it, but I think some interesting ones due to price action and just their general size. Carvana is actually down about 150 bucks, give or take, maybe more like 130 over the last kind of 3 weeks. I think they're a bit of a dubious company. Who knows if the kind of the soap opera, which is their company, will continue to have all these good and bad events, news events, scandals, stuff like that. There's some speculation around the off-balance sheet debt in those sort of companies as well. We've got Moody's, Occidental, Coke, Palo Alto Networks, all reporting how they've been performing over the last week, over the last month. You've got Carvana down 22%. Moody's is down 17 over the last month, and Palo Alto Networks is down almost 10. So Let's see if they can change their trajectory. How's Burry's big bet going? So obviously he's using derivatives, and we don't have derivatives available to us. We don't really know what he paid for the strike prices, and we don't know. I think we know the strike because he told us, but it's pretty hard to actually get a true sense of what's going on with how he's representing his view and how profitable he would be. But when the news broke, we just created a strategy and we looked at two inverse ETFs for Palantir and Nvidia to try and represent the view as best we could. And what we did is because of his 13F filing was heavily weighted to this Palantir short, we just made it 80% Palantir inverse ETF, 20% Nvidia. And over the last month, this strategy is up 40%. This is obviously hypothetical returns. Um, and since the trade's put on, it's up about net, let's see, 21.6%. These inverse ETFs have an incredible amount of decay that matches how kind of options traders would be dealing with their premium destruction over time as well. So it's a very speculative and difficult trade to execute, but really interesting to watch along and kind of track. So looks like Burry would be pretty healthily profitable right now in those options trades, most likely. Um, the price of Palantir has dropped quite a lot. Therefore, the inverse ETF is up kind of year to date 43%. So interesting one. So commitment of traders report. Um, Retail and large speculators still long, retail getting more long, and commercials are still increasing their short positions. You can use this commitment of traders report, which tells you where traders are trading and what the net positioning is of futures traders. So you can see kind of where smart money is, large speculators, and where retail are positioned. So it's quite a cool tool for that. And you can use it for free. So just cot.acuity.com. Some interesting pieces here would be, I would say, gold. The open interest on gold has plummeted. So, that kind of silver kind of volatility, kind of almost short squeeze followed by an insane move down. Um, Maybe cooling off here as open interest reduces. If we look at the Dow Jones, large speculators, commercials are getting more and more short. Retail is really long here relative to kind of how I thought they would be. And then you got large speculators slightly long as well. So nothing kind of crazy, but you definitely got a divergence between commercials and large speculators and small speculators, which you would expect. So let's move into finish off with some charts. So just some consolidation in silver after a ginormous move. Last week I thought this was really interesting. I've been watching the long bond for a long time and just kind of watching it and really wondering at what point would this ever be interesting again, and what's the right price for 30-year or 20-year plus treasuries. And I just need to get and I'm kind of I'm intrigued that it's finally moved, but I'm also concerned due to potentially policy choices around the US weakening their dollar. Some consolidation continued in the S&P 500 with this pretty weak kind of last day of trading last week. Same for the similar kind of look here for the semiconductors. I think the semiconductors is an interesting place to look. They've actually kind of come back quite a lot from the recent volatility. So that's an interesting one to look at. Bitcoin just falling off a cliff. We know that commercials are still quite short Bitcoin, but retail and large speculators have been buying the dip. Um, Look, it doesn't trade well, and the way this arc and the rest of the indexes are trading reminds me of 2022 and 2021. So we've got the NZ dollar getting stronger against the US dollar. I think we like to see it, actually. We've been in this kind of historical uptrend. This is quite laggy now, unfortunately. But we've been in this kind of general tick up and weakening of the New Zealand dollar for quite some time. And we finally had some reprieve, but, you know, in general, still trending up. So kind of the trend is still there. And I think you would kind of also observe that slightly with the respective economies as well. But you know, we'll see how this continues to play out. It is obviously an important relationship for consumers in New Zealand, so I think it remains important. And that's pretty much it for the week. We'll be doing this again next week, and we hope you all have a great week, and we look forward to doing it once again next week on Monday.